3 weeks later, a signal came through the repaired equipment. A human voice spoke in military tones from somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. They called themselves the Free North American Coalition. They were resistance cells fighting a guerrilla war against the Corinthians. The voice said all survivors should come to a hidden base. They had a plan to strike back and reclaim. Earth Daniel's hand stayed near the radio for hours before he responded. The man on the other end said his name was Commander Hayes. He led the Colorado resistance cell. Hayes was suspicious at first and demanded codes Daniel could not give. But when Daniel described his location and shared information about Corinthian movements, Hayes began to trust him. Then Hayes asked a direct question. Was Daniel alone out there? Daniel hesitated before admitting he was not alone. Hayes asked who was with him. Daniel asked if it really mattered. Hayes said carefully that it might matter very much. He explained they had reports of alien refugees, who were not Corinthians. Some people thought these aliens were scouts for another invasion. Others believed they were victims just like humans. Command was divided on whether to help them or kill them. Daniel felt cold fear run through him. He asked Hayes what he personally thought. Hayes replied that he had lost too many good people to make quick judgments, but he needed to know what he was dealing with. Would Daniel bring these refugees to the base? Daniel looked across the room at Lyra teaching Kira a song in their language. Their voices created beautiful harmony that made the air seem to shimmer. Ash rested nearby with golden eyes half closed in contentment. Daniel told Hayes he would contact him again later and ended the transmission that night. He explained everything to Lyra. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said quietly that he should go. His people needed him, and this was his world, and his fight. Daniel corrected her, saying it was their world. Now she was here too, Lyra replied softly that they were refugees who might not be welcome. She would not let her presence endanger him. He had already given them so much. They would find their own way. Daniel said no, very firmly. That was not going to happen. Lyra tried to argue, but he interrupted her. For 3 months they had survived together and fought together. They had become family. He would not abandon them to face danger alone. Lyra said the human resistance might not accept her and Kira. They might see Alori as enemies. Daniel promised he would make the humans understand if they could not or would not accept Lyra. Then maybe they were not the people he hoped they were. Kira tugged on his sleeve and asked in her accented English if Daniel would stay. He picked up the little girl the way he used to carry his own daughter. He told her yes, he would stay with them always. Over the next week, they prepared for the journey. Daniel contacted Hayes again and this time told him everything honestly. He described Lyra and Kira and explained their situation. He sent the classified files showing humanity's guilt in starting the conflict. Hayes was silent for a long time after seeing the information. Finally, the commander said this would cause problems, but he believed Daniel Command needed to see the truth. Hayes told them to come to the base and bring their friends. He could not promise a warm welcome, but he could promise they would not be shot immediately. It was the best offer they would get. The journey took 2 weeks through. Dangerous territory. Ash flew above, scouting the way and staying invisible against the night sky. Lyra used her powers to deflect enemy sensors. Daniel's survival skills kept them fed and hidden. Kira thought it was all an adventure. She rode on Ash's back and laughed as the dragon glided silently over forests and mountains. Daniel wondered if she understood the danger or if all children were blessed with innocence. The resistance base was carved inside a mountain. Hidden doors opened when Daniel transmitted the codes Hayes had given them. What waited inside would determine their future. The old observatory on the mountain became their new home. Daniel and Lyra and Kira and Ash had lived there for 2 months. It was the longest they had stayed anywhere since meeting. The thick stone walls kept them safe and the underground rooms provided shelter. Best of all, the remote location meant they rarely saw Corinthian patrols. Daniel worked every day trying to repair the old equipment. He had a desperate hope that if he could fix the radio telescope, he might contact other human survivors. Maybe, somewhere people were still fighting back against the invaders. Lyra spent her time teaching Kira about their lost culture. She used stories and songs to preserve Alori knowledge. The little girl was learning to make her hands glow with silver light. Just like her mother, Ash claimed the observatory dome as a lookout post. The dragon kept watch over the valley below and scared away dangerous animals. More than that, Ash helped with repairs using careful bursts of flame to weld metal. The dragon could manipulate delicate electronics with surprisingly gentle claws. One day, while searching through old computer files, Daniel found something shocking. Hidden in the archives were classified government documents marked with high-security warnings. His hands shook as he opened them. The files showed that humans had met the Aelori before the war. 10 years earlier, an Aelori ship had visited Earth peacefully. They offered friendship and wanted to share knowledge. They asked for nothing except cultural exchange, but human governments were divided about what to do. Some wanted cooperation, but others saw a chance to take what they wanted by force. The documents revealed what happened next. A secret military team captured the Aelori visitors. They were taken apart in hidden laboratories so their technology could be stolen. Their warnings about the Corinthians were completely ignored. When more Aelori came looking for their missing scouts, humanity attacked their ship. Daniel felt sick reading the files. The Corinthians had not attacked Earth randomly. They targeted Earth because humanity had been marked as dangerous and hostile. Earth had brought this war on itself through fear and greed. He heard footsteps and turned to see Lyra reading over his shoulder. Her face showed no emotion, but he knew she understood. Daniel spoke quietly, asking if she had known about this. Lyra admitted she had suspected something like this. The Corinthians often attacked worlds that proved violent toward others. But she said it changed. Nothing. Human people did not deserve genocide because some leaders made terrible choices. His daughter did not deserve to die for crimes she knew nothing about. They stood together in heavy silence. Daniel asked if that was why Aelori came to Earth. Lyra explained they came because they had nowhere else to run. Their homeworld was already destroyed. Thousands of refugees scattered across many planets hoping to find safety. She chose Earth because old records spoke of a world that could be brave and beautiful despite its problems. Lyra placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. She told him she had seen both the darkness and light in humanity. He shared food with strangers. He protected a child who was not his own. He gave shelter to refugees from space, knowing it could bring danger. That was the humanity she believed in. From above they could hear Kira laughing as she played with Ash. The sound was pure and joyful, untouched by the horrors both species had suffered. Daniel pulled up more documents. On the screen, there were coordinates for places where other Aelori refugees might have landed. Even better, there were locations of human resistance bases and hidden cities. Neither humans nor Aelori were alone in this fight. Hope appeared in Lyra's purple eyes. Maybe the war was not over. Maybe there was still a chance to win. That night they made plans around their fire. They would use the observatory equipment to send signals to the coordinates. They would try to contact both Aelori survivors and human resistance fighters. They would prepare to leave and find others who were still fighting. But as Daniel watched Kira sleeping peacefully against her mother, as he felt Ash's warm presence settled protectively around them all, he realized something that frightened him. He did not want to leave. He did not want to find others if it meant losing this strange family. Sharing food with an alien mother and child had become the most important thing in his world. Daniel Harper was alone in the burned forest when he saw the strange woman for the first time. The war had destroyed almost everything on Earth, and the alien invaders called Corinthians had taken over. Most of the cities. Daniel had been a soldier, but his team was gone now and he survived by hiding and searching for food in the ruins. That day changed everything for him. Between the black trees stood a woman who looked like she came from another world. Her skin glowed with silver light and her ears were long and pointed. She was very tall and wore torn clothes that seemed to shine. In her arms she held a small child, and Daniel could see she was badly hurt. Blue blood leaked from a wound on her side. Behind her, something massive moved in the shadows. Daniel saw golden eyes staring at him, and then he understood that a huge creature was protecting the woman. It was a dragon with green scales that reflected the dim sunlight. The beast was as big as a house, and it watched Daniel carefully. Daniel reached for his gun, but something stopped him from raising it. The woman looked at him with purple eyes that seemed to beg for help. She did not speak, but he knew what she needed. She needed safety for herself and her child, going against everything. His training taught him. Daniel lowered his weapon. He pointed toward his hidden shelter and waited. The woman nodded slowly, and the dragon spread its wings to shield them as they moved. That night, Daniel shared his small amount of food with the alien woman and her child. She told him her name was Lyra, and she came from a world that the Corinthians had already destroyed. Her people were called the Aelori, and they had been peaceful scholars who loved art and learning. Now almost all of them were dead. Child was named Kira, and she was scared but hungry. The dragon was called Ash and had been with Lyra's family for many years. Lyra explained that she was looking for other survivors from her world who might have escaped to Earth. She was wounded and lost and had nowhere else to go. Daniel told her she could stay for one night, but one night became 2 and then 3, and then more. Each day, Daniel went out to find food and supplies, while Ash kept watch. Each evening they gathered around a hidden fire and shared what little they had. Kira slowly became less afraid and started to smile at Daniel. Her small hands would reach for his fingers, and she began to trust him. Ash. The dragon also changed and stopped looking at Daniel like he was an enemy. The massive creature started treating him like part of the family. Daniel found himself caring about these strange refugees who had come into his life. Week after week passed, and Lyra's wound healed with a strange silver glow. She grew stronger and told Daniel stories about her lost world. She described floating cities and crystal forests where dragons had lived alongside her people for thousands of years. Everything was gone now, and the memories were all that remained. Daniel shared his own pain with her. He told Lyra about his daughter Amy, who had been in another city when the invasion started. He had not heard from her in months and did not know if she was alive. He told her about his team of soldiers who had died while he survived. The guilt was heavy on both of them. Kira became the light in their dark world. The little girl had a beautiful laugh that reminded Daniel of his own child. She would chase small animals through the forest and make everyone smile. She learned to say Daniel's name in her musical accent. Ash proved to be more than just a fierce guardian. The dragon was smart and could understand what they needed. Ash would hunt deer for them and bring berries, and even found useful items in the ruins. Daniel began teaching Kira how to survive in this dangerous new world. He showed her which plants could be eaten and how to move quietly. Lyra learned quickly too, and soon could handle human weapons with skill. She explained that her people studied everything, including how to fight. They developed routines that felt almost normal. Mornings were for scouting while Lyra kept Kira safe and Ash hunted. Afternoons were for learning and teaching. Evenings were for sharing stories by the fire. Nights were for keeping watch, though Ash seemed to never sleep. Everything changed 1 month after they met. Daniel heard strange sounds in the darkness and knew immediately what it meant. Corinthian patrol had found them. 3 of the insect-like aliens came on flying machines with weapons ready. They had detected heat from the shelter somehow. Daniel barely had time to shout a warning before Ash attacked. The dragon was like a force of nature. Unleashed, green scales flashed as Ash tore into the first Corinthian with claws and teeth. The second alien was burned by green fire hotter than anything from Earth. The third one fired its weapon, but Lyra moved faster than Daniel thought possible. Her hands began to glow with silver light, and the energy blast curved in midair. The shot hit the alien who had fired it instead. The fight was over in seconds, but the silence afterward felt very long. Daniel stared at Lyra, and the power still crackling around her fingers. She could control energy itself. Lyra explained that all Aelori had this gift. They were scholars of fundamental forces, but their powers had not saved their world from destruction. They had to leave immediately because more patrols would come, as they fled deeper into the wilderness. Daniel realized something important. This was not just about surviving anymore. They were not just strangers sharing resources. They had become something much more meaningful. They had become a family formed in the fires of war. Years later, historians would mark that night as the beginning of the true coalition, the moment when humanity finally opened itself to the stars. When Captain Daniel Harper asked an alien woman and her daughter to stay forever, he changed the course of the war. But Daniel never cared about history books. He cared about the sound of Kira's laughter echoing through the base. He cared about Lyra's hand in his as they planned battles and dreamed of peace. He cared about Ash's protective presence, and knowing his strange, beautiful family was safe. He had shared his food with strangers in a time of war. In return, they gave him something more precious than survival. They gave him home. The coalition grew stronger with each passing month. More alien refugees joined, bringing knowledge and skills. Human resistance cells coordinated their attacks using information Lyra provided. Slowly, painfully, they began pushing the Corinthians back. It took 5 years of brutal fighting, 5 years of sacrifice, and loss and small victories. But humanity and its new allies refused to surrender. They fought for every city and every mile of ground. Lyra became a legend among the resistance. Her silver light was seen on 100 battlefields. Her tactical genius saved countless lives. She fought with the fury of someone who had lost one world and refused to lose another. Kira grew into a strong young woman. She trained as both warrior and scholar like her mother. She became a bridge between humans and aliens. Her mixed heritage gave hope that different species could not just coexist but truly blend. Ash proved instrumental in the final victory. The dragon led aerial assaults that broke Corinthian formations. Ancient and wise Ash became a symbol of the cooperation that made victory possible. Daniel fought alongside them all. His hair turned gray, but his spirit never wavered. He led missions with courage born from protecting what he loved. Every battle brought him one step closer to a future where his family could live in peace. The day the last Corinthian ship fled Earth orbit, the celebration lasted for weeks. Humanity and its allies had won. The cost was terrible, with millions dead and cities in ruins. But Earth belonged to its people again. Reconstruction began immediately. Human and alien engineers worked side by side. Technologies merged, creating wonders neither species could achieve alone. New cities rose from the ashes. These were places where anyone from any world could walk safely. The coalition expanded beyond just military alliance. It became a true union of different peoples building a shared future. Trade routes opened between worlds. Cultural exchanges flourished. Children grew up learning about species from across the galaxy. 20 years after the war ended, Daniel and Lyra stood in the rebuilt city of Seattle. They watched their children play in a park filled with flowering trees from a dozen worlds. Kira was now a young woman serving in the Interstellar Coalition. She visited with her younger siblings. The twins possessed their mother's silver skin and their father's brown eyes. They were the first human Elori hybrids ever born. Scientists said they might live longer than humans, but not as long as pure Elori, a perfect bridge between two species. Ash, ancient and massive, watched over them all from a specially constructed perch. The dragon had become a living monument. People came from across the system to see the legendary creature. Ash accepted the attention. With patient dignity, Daniel asked Lyra if she regretted it, choosing forever with someone who would not last as long as her. Lyra laughed with pure joy. She said she regretted nothing. He taught her that love was measured not in years, but in moments. She had countless perfect moments with him. She leaned against Daniel, watching their family play. She mentioned that Elori medical technology had extended his life considerably. They might have another century together. Daniel smiled and said, "Then, they should make every day count. Every day they shared not just food but life itself. Every day they chose each other over everything else. Every day was forever, and that was more than enough." The sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Humans and aliens walked together through streets lit by both Earth technology and alien innovations. Somewhere in the distance, ships launched carrying the coalition banner to distant stars. This was the world Daniel and Lyra had fought for, a world where sharing food with a stranger could change everything. A world where family was defined by love, not biology. A world where forever meant something different, but no less beautiful. Daniel held Lyra's hand and watched his children laugh. He had asked them to stay forever that night. So long ago they had said yes, and together they built a forever worth living. The base cafeteria went completely silent when they entered. 200 human survivors stared at the alien mother and child. They stared at the massive dragon that barely fit through the doorway, No one pointed weapons, but Daniel saw many hands hovering. Near guns, Commander Hayes stepped forward. He was an older man with scars on his face and careful eyes. He studied Lyra for a long moment, then looked down at Kira. The child held her mother's hand nervously. Hayes spoke quietly, saying they were very far from home. Lyra replied that she had no home anymore. It was destroyed just like Earth was being destroyed. She said they only wanted shelter, and maybe if allowed the chance to help fight their common enemy. A woman in a colonel's uniform stepped forward. She demanded to know how they could trust that this was not some Corinthian trick. Before Lyra could answer, Ash moved slowly forward. The dragon lowered its huge head until it was level with little Kira. The child laughed with pure joy and threw her arms around the dragon's face. It was such an innocent moment of trust that several soldiers visibly relaxed. Daniel spoke up, saying they had 3 months to kill him, if that was their plan. Instead, Lyra saved his life when a patrol found them. Ash hunted food for everyone. Kira reminded him why they fought this war and why they could never give up. He pulled out a data drive with the classified files. He explained there was evidence that human government captured and killed Elori diplomats. Before the war, the evidence showed humanity started this conflict through cruelty and fear. The Corinthians were monsters, but humans helped create the situation. Hayes took the drive with a grim expression. He said they would need to verify everything. Daniel agreed but said, while they investigated the past, they should consider the present. Lyra had knowledge of Corinthian technology and tactics and weapons. She could teach them things that might turn the war. Also, the Aelori were not the only potential allies. Lyra explained there were refugee groups scattered across many worlds, different species fleeing Corinthian expansion. If humanity helped them and offered sanctuary, they could build a coalition. Humans would not have to fight alone. The colonel demanded to know why Aelori would help humans after what was done to their people. Lyra's gaze swept across the room. Meeting dozens of suspicious eyes, she said it was because Daniel Harper shared his food with strangers when he barely had enough to survive, because he protected her daughter when he could have abandoned them, because he showed her that humanity, despite its darkness, had a capacity for kindness that went beyond species. She placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. One human chose compassion over fear. That gave her hope that others might do the same. If even a few people could see past their prejudices, then together, they could defeat the Corinthians. They could build something better from the ashes. The silence stretched out like a held breath. Then slowly Hayes extended his hand to Lyra. He said, "Welcome to the resistance." They could use all the help they could get. One by one, other soldiers came forward. Some were still suspicious and others curious. A few were openly welcoming. Kira became instantly popular because of her cheerful nature. She melted even the hardest hearts. Ash was given a massive cavern to rest in. Within days, the dragon helped transport supplies and defend the perimeter. Lyra proved incredibly valuable to the resistance. Her knowledge of energy systems helped engineers develop better weapons. Her understanding of Corinthian biology revealed weak points. She worked without rest, as if trying to repay a debt Daniel insisted did not exist. Weeks became months. At the base, everything prospered under the new cooperation. Lyra contacted other Aelori refugees and convinced them to help humanity. Coalition formed, bringing together species from across the galaxy, all of them united against Corinthian tyranny through everything. Daniel and Lyra grew closer. Kira started calling him Papa Dan. Ash responded to his commands as easily as to Lyra's. They moved through the base as one Unit A family in all but name. 6 months after arriving, Daniel found Lyra on the observation deck. She was staring at the stars. Kira was asleep in their shared quarters, watched over by Ash. Daniel asked if she was thinking about her lost homeworld. Lyra said she was thinking about forever. She explained that Aelori lived for centuries. She could watch civilizations rise and fall. She could see stars born and die. She turned to Daniel with sadness in her purple eyes. She said she could watch him grow old and pass away while she remained young. Daniel understood what she was really saying. The fear underneath her words. The reason she kept distance between them despite their obvious connection. He said carefully that maybe they should focus on the time they did have, however long that might be. Lyra asked if that would be enough for him. Decades, instead of centuries. Daniel thought about his daughter lost to the war, about his team who gave their lives protecting others, about countless humans and aliens who fell before the Corinthian advance life was precious because it did not last forever. He told her that every day he shared food with her and Kira, he knew he might not have tomorrow. Every morning he woke up next to her family. He felt grateful for one more day. He learned not to take time for granted. He took her hand and silver fingers, wrapped around his weathered ones. He said yes. Decades were enough. He would rather have 30 years of joy with her than centuries of loneliness without her. Tears traced down Lyra's cheeks, glowing faintly in the darkness. She said once Aloy bonded, it was for life. She could not bear to lose him. Daniel interrupted her, saying the words that came from deep in his heart. Stay forever, her and Kira, and Ashnod as refugees, and not as allies, as family, as his stay forever. Lyra kissed him then, a gesture that went beyond species, expressing what words could not. When they finally separated, she smiled. She whispered that forever might not be as long as she thought, but with him, it would be enough.